Good afternoon, and welcome to everybody who is joining us live. And of course, we are just thankful also to everybody else who is joining us later on, watching the show later on through our other various networks and platforms. But this is the Doug and Fur Show. My name is Doug Petrozelli, and I'm here with my partner in truth.
Fernando, I love that, by the way. Partner in truth, it never fails. You always say the
Yes,
same thing every intro.
yes. That I think that's something that just came off the cuff one day.
Yeah,
I
that's
think maybe
unscripted.
even a first episode. I think I just said that, and it stuck.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I like it.
Yeah.
So,
So do you want to introduce today's topic? What are we going to talk about today?
so today we are going to talk about student loans. What to do if you already have one? Should you
Right,
get one if you don't? And what about student loans at the political level, at the national level? Like, what kind of
right,
crisis is this? How is it affecting our nation and our taxpayers? So,
right.
why don't you, Doug, why don't you tell us about student loans at the national level and the way it affects everyone at the higher level?
Right. Well, I think one of the biggest issues when it comes to just overall college in general is the idea of how expensive it is. I mean, I don't know. I actually did not go to a traditional vocational school of a 4 year degree or anything like that, but I know many people that have, and the prices are outrageous. And we can just go back like a generation ago, never mind 2 generations ago. Um, and so we're going back 20 years, 40 years, even 60 years. The prices have dramatically increased and have surpassed inflation. Inflation has nothing to do with the price. I mean, slightly to do with the price increase, but they are outpaced inflation
Yeah.
dramatically. And I don't know if you have any thoughts to share on that, but I know that it's a crisis that's happening right now, and it's due to the how expensive student loans are. Not just student loans are available, but the college itself, and then you get the loan to pay for that.
Yeah, so the way I understand it, right? So you were talking about inflation and the cost of going to school.
Right,
Is that like inflation? I think over the last 50 years has gone up like I think it's been like 265%.
right,
And I think college has been like over 1,000%, if I'm not
right.
mistaken. Right?
Yes,
So
yes.
it's
It's
just
out. It's dramatically outpaced it.
yeah, of course. And I think that's because of the way student loans work. In fact, if
Right,
everyone paid for school without aid of loans or anything like that, especially federal loans, um, their school would have inflated at the regular price or at the regular rate as everything else in today's economy. But
right,
since these places, the federal government and banks and stuff are just giving loans to students for
right,
however much the cost of the university is, the university's like, well, let's raise the cost. They're going to
right,
keep giving the loans, so let's just keep raising the cost.
right,
And from a business standpoint, that's really good for a university. The fact that they're
right,
getting these lump sums, like they don't care how much they're charging students, just give us your
right,
money.
right. And I think that that goes back to the whole idea of simple economics. We have to go to the idea of supply and demand. If me and you are selling peanuts and people want to buy peanuts from us, we're going to sell them for what they're worth. Now, if the government comes and gives them loans to buy peanuts from us, well, there's going to be a flooding of the market, of our peanut market, to get more peanuts. So we have a limited supply of peanuts. So what are we going to do? We're going to raise our prices, and the cost of our peanuts are going to go up and up and up because the government has flooded this market with loans that people can do to buy our peanuts. So that's the same idea when it comes to college.
Yeah.
College was a regular market, and then bam, everybody needs to go to college. So the government is going to make these federally backed student loans. Bam, yes, this is great, wonderful. Everybody who wants to go to college can take out a student loan and get to go to college. And there's, not really any criteria on a federal student loan because this is the government giving the loan. And it's not that I just want to say that the government is bad and evil. It's the idea that government in general is insufficient. And that is simply because a government has no incentive to say, hey, how are we going to make sure this loan gets paid back? So there's no structure on getting approved for the loan. There's no saying, hey, what are you going to school for? Oh, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to get a medicine degree. Okay, great. You're going to be a doctor. You're going to make lots of money. You're going to be able to pay us back. Oh, were you a good student? Are you smart enough to become a doctor? And we're not going to give you this loan and you're going to fail out of school and not be able to pay us back. That's how the private institutions used to work. So people would get rejected from getting student loans in the past when it was the private entity. Now, once it became into the public, the federally backed student loans, everybody got one. And you could have been a very poor student. You could have been somebody that's just going into some type of arts or whatever other type of job curriculum that job market, getting a degree in a job market that maybe doesn't pay very well or doesn't have a lot of jobs, and essentially that degree could become useless. For instance, there's one funny one that we always talk about: lesbian dance theory, actual degree.
Oh,
You can't
really?
really get a job.
I
You
didn't
can't you
know that.
can't really get a job in a degree with that unless it's becoming a professor that's teaching that. And even at that, you're going to make maybe $40,000-$50,000 a year. It's not going to be sufficient to pay, back, off those student loans very well or very easily. But when it comes to the federal government providing that, there's no incentive structure. It's basically, do you want to go to school? That's great. Whatever you want to go for, no matter how good or bad of a student you were in high school, it doesn't matter. Sign your name on the dotted line. We will give you money.
Yeah.
That is one of the problems that we have. So not only are prices completely inflating, we're also having the problem of people like having useless degrees and basically entering job markets that the degree had nothing to do with. They might as well have just went from school straight into the job market, built some work experience, and be at a higher rate of pay than they are now currently.
Yeah. And I think when you say useless degree, what you mean to say is just a de I think what you mean to say is a degree that's not going to give you the return on investment, right?
Sure,
So,
that's a
you
nicer one. Thank you for stating that.
no, but seriously, because if it's what you like to do, right? If you really did want to
Sure,
study lesbian dance theory and that's really what you want to study, then
right,
go for it. But just be aware that you spent 4 years in school, and you're not going to get that time back, and you're not going to get paid. If you took out a loan for it, you're not going to get paid enough to pay off that loan, and that's even if you get a job.
right,
So the job market for lesbian dance theory professors isn't high.
right.
Um, unlike I don't know, computer engineering or anything like that.
Yeah,
So
medicine, law.
yeah, the job market there is much higher and the pay is much higher.
Right,
So it's like you were saying about the federal government providing these loans, right? There's no incentive. And the thing is that since you owe the money to the federal government, you can't get out of it. If you took out a student loan, you can't declare bankruptcy. You have to
right,
pay it back until you die. So
right,
it's just the way it is. And that's why like the market is just not doing well. That's why there's this national student debt crisis,
right.
right?
I think it's reached over $1 trillion of student loan debt alone in this country.
Yeah, and it's because my brother's calling me. I'll tell him to text me. And it's because I think a large part of why that's happening is just because everyone is being so incentivized to go to college. It's like you need to go to college after you graduate high school. And what I'm saying might sound counterintuitive, right? Everyone always tells you you need to go to college. I'm gonna be honest with you. Go to college if you're gonna study something that you need a degree for. But if
Right.
you're going into a job market that you don't need a degree for, the degree's useless. I'm just being honest. Um,
Oh, well, you used the useless degree phrase.
not that the degree is useless. The degree is useless for what you wish to accomplish with it.
Uh-huh.
So for example, a lot of people think that, oh, I graduated high school, now I'm going to go to college, and I don't know what I want to do, but
Right,
that's just the thing. That's the next
right,
direction that my life needs to go in is college. Everybody goes to
right,
college. So I need to
right,
go to college and you don't know what you want to do in college. So now you're spending all this money to get a degree in something that you don't even know. Like maybe it's just a general thing and I'll pick later or whatever,
right,
which is not necessarily the worst idea, but as long as you know that you want to pick something.
right,
Otherwise, you end up getting a degree in something and then you get a job that you didn't need a degree for.
right,
Um, and even in computer science, which is a degree that I studied for, um, there are a lot of people in my profession that don't have degrees. I mean, the majority of people do, but there are a lot of people that don't, just because it's so easy to self-teach. You can teach yourself how to do pretty much anything on YouTube, and if you're just
Right,
applied enough, if you apply yourself and you just really work hard at it, I think that you can teach yourself. And really, what the degree does is it gives you credibility when you're entering a job market, right?
right,
Not a lot of people are going to want to hire you if you have nothing to back you up saying that you're good at this. But in my field, a lot of times in an interview, we might not even ask for a degree. We just be like, here are some programming problems. What would you do here? How would you solve this? Show us some of your projects, and they do, and it's like, okay, you're hired. And
right,
they didn't need to go through 4 years of school and spend thousands of dollars to get a degree to get there.
right,
So I think that's a bit of advice that a lot of students don't get nowadays when they're in high
right,
school. It's just go to college, go to college, go to college, just get there no
right.
matter what. So
So yeah, so I just want to kind of brief on what I think would be a really great solution. And I think one of the biggest things is, with a lot of things that I believe anyway, is get the government out of it. I think that the government comes in with the greatest intentions. And the point is, the government is not really capable of doing much. The government was really created to govern us and to protect our rights.
yeah,
It's our right to life, our right to liberty, and our right to be able to, earn property. Not that we have a right to have property, our right to earn and protect the property in which we earn,
hmm
and build for ourselves. That being said, when it comes to college, it's a great thing. I think it's great for people that go to college, and if you can afford to go and study some things on your own, even if you don't care, how much money you're going to make, that's great. I don't think that you should be doing that on the taxpayer dime if you're just going to school for fun and learning for fun. I don't think that that's something that I am comfortable with my tax dollars going to.
right. It's
Um,
usually just
I,
to binge drink and party.
right, right. And if you want to do that, that should be on your own dime. Um, and that being said, I think that we should privatize these student loans. Yes, there will be a lot less people going to college because of the student loan issue, because it won't just be given to everybody. And yes, I'm sure there's some rare exceptions that we can look at, but we can't just look at rare exceptions. We have to look at the rule. That being
Yeah,
said, there, yes, are rare exceptions where there is somebody that, wouldn't have had the money and they wanted to be a doctor and they got the student loan, from the federal government, and they became a successful doctor and they paid it off. And yes, that program worked out great for
yeah,
them.
but even still, I think
We
there would have been
can't.
other channels.
Right. And that's also the hope that yes, that can be the case. The point being is we have to make policy based off of what is the rule,
hmm
not exceptions. And that has to be the case. And the thing is, it will push people to really seek out, hey, what does the job market look like? Am I really going to take a degree? Let's just even say if it was electronic engineering, electrical engineering. If there's no jobs in your area, are you willing to move to Orlando for that? Are you willing to move to another state for that? It really makes you think, because these are the things that will be presented to you
hmm
in the case you have to be made when it comes to receiving a loan. And I think that that's very important. So, one, if we did that, that would bring dramatically the cost of college down because the market wouldn't be overwhelmingly flooded with everybody who just wanted to go, didn't really know what they were going for the most part. And they're just spending money, the taxpayers' money. I mean, yes, that money is supposed to be paid back, but right now the bill's being footed by the taxpayer.
Yeah,
That's
and
not right.
how do you feel about canceling student debt, federal student debt?
Right. I can't tell you. I mean, that's even worse. I'm not really comfortable with my tax dollars going to footing somebody's loan, even though they are going to pay it back. That is my money, essentially. I would even say that with $1 trillion student loan debt, that's probably really not actually realistic that it's all going to get paid back. There will be people who die and never pay it back. A large majority of people will at some point reach the end of their lives and not have paid it back. Canceling it, I'm just not okay. I think that incentivizes poor behavior and saying that the government will pay for this. You can get a degree and you really didn't even add to society. I know that the idea was, hey, we're going to get everybody degrees and they're going to add to society. They're going to be our doctors, our
Yeah.
lawyers, our bankers. Yeah, but not everybody wants to go and be a doctor or a lawyer and a banker. These jobs pay so much because they're difficult to be qualified for, and they're difficult jobs to carry out when you're qualified for them. People want to be a, go to culinary school and get a bachelor's in culinary. That's fine. I get that. That's great, but they don't pay that much because they're much easier to become qualified for, and they're much easier jobs to fulfill.
Yeah,
Um,
I
and
think
I'm not comfortable with that being, we don't need more culinary people because it's not that hard to become a culinary professional.
in comparison to, I don't know,
So yeah,
engineering
so
or
the
something.
law degree and engineering and being a surgeon. I guess the one case I could make, but I think the private sector would do it on its own, um, because they're willing to take that risk on people who are going to do that. Is maybe if the federal student loans had standards, but they don't have standards because the government is not incentivized to create standards to make sure the money gets paid back because it's not their money.
No,
It's
and
the taxpayers' money.
they would enter like muddy waters with racial inequality and things like that. So it's like, oh well, we gave this person a loan and we didn't give it to this person. Oh well, now we have to question your motives, and especially
Right.
because it's the federal government. Yeah, I think as a general rule of thumb, canceling all student debt is just not fair. It's not fair
No.
that some people went to school, took out a loan, paid it back, are making a lot of money, are very successful, and they're essentially paying for someone who went 2 years, got drunk every night, went to all the parties, and dropped out. And now they
Right.
owe $50,000, $100,000 because they
Right.
decided to go to the most prestigious university because they threw the best parties and had the best sororities slash fraternities.
Right.
It's just not fair.
And it's also not fair to an individual like me who didn't go to college.
And
And yes, I'm still paying taxes. I found a way to be successful. Thank God in this country, that is still an avenue. It's still an option. We can do it. If you work hard, you can do it without a degree as
yeah,
well. And I don't feel like that's fair to me. And there is a many people out there like me. There's a many people out there that went to trade schools, for a year or so, and they paid it on their own dime, and they became a welder, a plumber, a
yeah.
carpenter, electrician,
I think
whatever it is. They are paying for that too.
I think that the majority of people would agree that it's just not fair that, I work hard. It's like doing a group project. I do the group project on my own and then everyone gets the A,
Right.
right? It's just not fair. However, what about um, doing certain things like, okay, well, you're just really struggling, but you are trying hard, and just based on these interest rates and stuff, you're never going to be able to pay it back, but you did get a good job and you are contributing to society. So for you, we're going to cancel it, but for this person that dropped out because all they did was party and drink, we're not going to cancel it. Now we're getting into more of a gray area. What do you think about
Right.
situations like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would be much more open to the person that got the degree, but I think that it becomes a little bit more of a gray area because, the person that became a zoologist, I think that's great that you're a zoologist, but society doesn't really benefit from that, outside of, we have nice zoos to look at and the animals are taken care of. Well, like, yes, that's great, but I'm more into, let's solve actual problems, and I
We
hate to
need
say it
some
that
of
way. I
everything.
care. What's that?
That we need some of everything. So we need a
Right,
handful of zoologists, we need a handful of historians or
right,
things like that, but we can't flood the market with those
right.
professions that don't contribute the same as, say, someone who's developing software or building bridges, things like that, right?
Yes, architects, scientists, doctors, lawyers, financial institutions. Those are what, that's what drives,
Yeah.
humanity
I
forward.
think they're all
Uh,
important, but some are required more than others.
Right. Well, I would even argue to say that those ones that I just mentioned are what made every other one of those possible. That's
Yeah,
what makes a wealthy and free and healthy society. If you don't have a wealthy, free, prosperous, healthy society, you're not going to care about zoos. You're not going to care about the ocean, and
that's
that's
true.
just humanity. People in poorer countries, they don't care about global warming. They care about making sure
Food.
their kids, aren't dying. So I mean, and I get that in that situation. I forget what the exact number is. Once you reach a certain level of GDP, then you start to care about the environment. And the point is, the greatest way to care about the environment is to get people's GDP up and the personal GDP up, and then they start to care about the
Hmm.
environment. So I would argue that even that, like, that does need to be the backbone. The sciences, the medicine,
Yeah.
the law, and the financial institution. That's the backbone in which make all these other things great. So I guess maybe I guess I would be open to an argument of somebody doing well in one of those areas. To get back to your question of canceling debt for somebody, let's say in these foundational institutions, medicine, science, law, finances. Um, I could be much more open to having that discussion, I would say, but I just can't say that that's fair for the guy who took the risk,
Yeah.
paid it back. I just I'm not okay with that. Like I just I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I'm
I have
much
thoughts there
more
as
okay.
well.
I mean that definitely changes things when you are contributing to the bedrock of I would even argue a lot of American society. It's just very very difficult for me to say canceling debt is okay because you took that risk, you took that responsibility. That is on you, and that's something that I just can't get away from personal responsibility. I think that that's a founding idea and value of this country.
Yeah.
I think it becomes very dangerous when we compromise on that.
Well, it's like you said. I think it's a discussion I'm more willing to have. Um, but I think a better approach would be maybe like, hey, if you are contributing, we'll cancel your interest, um, and just pay it back, at zero interest. Uh, things along those lines, right? Where you're
Right,
still taking responsibility and the taxpayer isn't footing your bill.
right,
But you know what? We're not gonna profit off of you, because it's tough for you and you are doing what you're supposed to do. You didn't just go and flunk out to get
yeah,
drunk, right? So so something like that, I'd be more willing to compromise on. I think that would be more fair. And I think also regulations on these unsolicited loans, because 18-year-olds that are coming out of high school,
right,
if they don't have good guidance, if they don't have
right.
parents or teachers or just mentors that are going to guide them in the right direction, these companies take advantage of them. They're 18.
Right.
They don't know exactly what.
They don't know what signing up for $40,000 worth of student loans is going to mean.
Exactly, exactly. And they're not paying attention to things like, yeah, this is a good degree, but how's the job market in my area? Am I willing to
Right,
move? What's the average salary for someone who graduates when they come out? What about five,
right,
10 years? How am I going to be
right,
able to pay this back? They're not thinking about those things. They just think I get to go to school. Um, and I'm not talking about every 18-year-old. I'm just talking about the ones that haven't had the
right,
guidance.
right. No, you're talking about not the exceptions, but the rule, and that's the general rule.
Yeah, exactly.
I
And
mean, we're not in the financial crisis with over $1 trillion of student loan debt because, you know, the exception. It's the
yeah,
rule.
it's the rule,
The rule
exactly.
that people that don't know and don't really have a good understanding of what they're signing themselves into.
Yeah.
Just like
So,
any mortgage, you're married to that mortgage for 15 to 30 years, but
hmm,
the standards are very high to get into a mortgage. And therefore, most people are paying their mortgages back because
yeah.
it took a lot to get there.
And when
Um,
it wasn't high, the economy collapsed.
right, absolutely. And so there are dire effects. And I think
Yeah.
one of the greatest things was, and that was a very clear, reason. What was that? That was government intervention with the greatest intentions of we're going to help people get homes. Well, yes, that's wonderful. I would love for people to get homes, but making it easier and taking away standards, we have to push people to have high standards to be willing to maintain what they are giving. And if it was too easy to get something, then it will be very easy to lose that.
Yeah.
And it needs to be very important for that. Like if something is not difficult, um, I'm not able to value it very much. If
Yeah.
something was difficult, human beings, human nature says to ourselves, if something was extremely difficult for me to get, I internally value it more. That's why we value gold because it's hard to
Hmm.
get to. It's hard for us to go and dig and mine in the earth and find it and then bring it up and purify it and refine it. It's very difficult to do. That's why gold is valuable because I can't eat gold. I can't build anything with it because it's a very
It's
soft
rarity.
metal. But it's a rarity and it's hard for me to get.
Hmm.
And that's our human nature. So we have to remember that goes with everything.
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes left, so in the 5 minutes, I'll just talk about a few
Yeah.
things, my own personal experiences. I think one, I think it's a great thing that the government does do is public schools, right? Going to FIU, um, when I went to FIU from 2010 to 2014, I think the yearly tuition was a little under $5,000, and at University of Miami, which is a private institution, was $33,000. Those numbers now are in the high 40s, I think, for University of Miami. So it's a huge difference in price. And FIU is a university. When it came to Broward College, which at the time, even before it was Broward Community College, the price is much lower. I think it was a little over $1,000 a year, right? So I think that's one thing that the government does well is provide an incentive um, to go to school by offering lower prices. Um, and I wish they did that with hospitals too, right? Instead of every hospital being privatized and every medicine being privatized, that there were such thing as public medicines, because then that would encourage the private sector to lower their prices. Um, so that's just a thought that I had there, and maybe we can discuss that at some other time, which is
Yeah.
instead of government intervention by making it easier for people to do things in that sense, just providing competition for the private sector when the private sector gets out of control. So anyway, so I think that the opportunity to go to school for free exists as a rule. So there are obviously exceptions of people that didn't have that opportunity. They didn't go to high school here,
Right.
etc. But for the majority of people, at least from my experience in Florida, there's a scholarship called Florida Bright Futures that's
Right.
offered to everyone, and it's sponsored by the Florida Lottery. But you do have to meet a certain academic criteria of excellence. It
Right.
used to be easier. Now I know it's a lot harder now to get. And even the 100%, they call it the 100%, right? Only covers up to what would be 100% of Broward College, for instance, but not FIU. It would only cover about half
Right.
of FIU's tuition. And it's very hard. You have to work really hard. It has a very high academic standard, right?
Right.
But I think that's good. If you want to go to
Right.
school for free, work hard,
Right.
study,
Right.
and do what you need to do. And there are people in high school, they just don't have the guidance. They're not being guided in the right direction, or even
Right.
if they are, they're just not paying attention. They're not listening. They don't care. They just want to hang out with their friends. They graduate high school, and then reality sets. Life hits, and it's like, I can't go to school because I can't afford it. But you had the opportunity in high school. All you had to do
Right.
was get bright futures, right? And that's just one method. The way I did it is I got bright futures. I got the 75%. I didn't qualify for the 100% because I was a little bit under. Um, so I got I don't know, like $1,000 to $1,500, something like that, right?
Right.
And then at FIU, I met some other academic criteria that I really worked hard for. I submitted essays and whatever, and there are so many scholarships available. And then at FIU, I was able to get more scholarships, and I was able to go to school for free for the first year. Then, unfortunately, I missed one of the criterias, and that scholarship that I had at FIU dropped from a certain amount to a lower amount, and I ended up having to pay for a portion of school. But it's still a lot less than $50,000. It ended up being only like 2,000 or 1,000 per year or something like that, which was
Right.
much more affordable, right? And it was a great university. I got my degree in computer science. So I think that the opportunity to go to school for a very low cost or even free exists.
Right.
The only reason you need to go to Harvard is if you plan to be a world-class lawyer. Um,
Right.
my brother went to St. Thomas Law School, and he's doing a great job. And it
Right.
was fairly
And he's got a
expensive.
job at a great firm in Miami.
Yes, yes. It wasn't super cheap because the competition to get into FIU law um, is very hard. And some people get in, some people don't. But he found a way. And my brother's an example of a case where, yeah, he did take out. I'm not sure if he took out loans or how he did it, but the point is he is going to have to pay some money back. But he got a law degree. You
Right.
know, like
Right.
he's a lawyer. So there are some cases like that, like you might want to go to University of Miami Health or some other like Harvard Medical School or whatever, because you're going to be a surgeon. Like that's going to
Right.
pay off. So yeah, take out loans, but
Right.
don't take out a loan to go to FSU to get a degree in communications.
Right.
because you could get a degree in communications at Broward College
Right.
or any other community college, right? And
Right.
honestly, the professors are as good, if not better.
Right.
So just because a professor's at a private university doesn't mean they're better than another one. I had great
Right.
professors at FIU. So just some bit of advice. If you're young and you're watching this, props to you for watching this and just take the advice. It might be hard, but don't take out a loan to get a degree in communications or hospitality management at a private university because you're not going to be able to pay it back.
Right.
So yeah, that's I
Right.
think those are my closing thoughts.
Yeah, I think that that's great. And I think that, one, I would argue just on my closing thoughts is I think it would be great to just see things privatized. If we got rid of the student loans altogether, I think me and you might slightly disagree on that. But I think if we got rid of that altogether and let the private industry take over, that would take out the flooding of the market. It would lower the prices of what it costs to go to college.
Yeah, I agree.
And then it would also incentivize people to go into the stronger degrees. Um, because you wouldn't get student loans otherwise. But I think the most important thing, because I think I did fall into the category, which you said I just kind of wanted to hang out. I didn't pay attention at 18 years old. I didn't really know what was going on. Um, but I didn't make that choice to go to college because there was a lot of pressure from school to do that. And from just the culture and society. But I did have my parents, and my parents, who were really, really wonderful. My mom actually has a master's degree. My dad, he has an associate's degree, but he didn't get that until his late 40s. And he was actually able to, own his own business, make a really good living. They own multiple houses now. He was able to put my mom through her master's degree program and do all those things. And he did all that with a high school diploma because he got his associates much later. But they gave me the values of understanding that what you take out, make sure you can, it's worth it. Make
Hmm.
sure that if you're going to take this loan, you're going to get a job that equals what you can pay back. And I had that guidance. And I think that's the most important thing is the family. And I realized how rare I don't want to say it's completely rare, but that's leaning a lot more toward the exception and not so much the rule. As an involved family that would be so willing to have that relationship with their son, and to me that was normal, and I think that's something that I think would be a great solution.
Yeah, yeah. So well, that's it for me. Um,
Yeah.
I think if you have any questions on student loans, if you want some advice on if you're a young person and want some advice on what you should do, you can reach out to us and we'd be
Mhm.
happy to talk about it. If you have any comments or about the federal student loans or anything that we talked about or you disagree, just reach out to us on any of our platforms, DM us, and we'd be happy to answer.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And if you have any questions and you're a young person not wanting to go to college and looking for other avenues of success, please reach out to because we are two people from both sides of that coin. And I think that we can offer great advice. I think we've both been pretty successful. And I think we're going to continue to be successful individuals. But thank you so much for viewing. Thank you for being here. This is the Doug and Fur Show.
all right, bye.